Joining me today to discuss cybersecurity is Kemmell Kassim, Vice President of Gray Matter Systems. Welcome, Kemmell.
Thanks for having me, Sid.
To frame this discussion, because I follow cybersecurity, and I find there's lots of solutions, lots of players playing different roles and things like that. So to start this, could you kind of characterize where Gray Matter Systems fits and what you do and how you can help people?
Sure, that's an easy question. So our business got started about 30 years ago in the controls network. So within the last about 10 years, as people wanted to use that data more from the SCADA system, you had to be able to do it securely. So that's our focus, is really the cybersecurity for the OT control systems network.
We're starting to see, I've been following cybersecurity for quite some time, and I think we've kind of gone over that hump now, over the hurdle to where companies really appreciate the need for cybersecurity and are investing more. And I'm just curious, are you seeing the same thing in your business? Is it getting a little easier to get funding for projects?
It is getting a little easier. Just a few years ago, probably as little as 5, we'd go talk to somebody in the controls network, and they would say, we're air gapped, there's no threat for us, there's no investment needed. And just a few people were thinking of it. Now, it's really rare to go talk to somebody on a controls network that doesn't think they need more to be more secure. Justifying the projects is still a little trickier, but it is getting better.
I'm sure that's always a problem.
Yeah.
One of the things I see, and I'm a big proponent for actually, or I talk about it a lot, is the challenges that I see companies having in sustaining and managing the cybersecurity. They can go out and buy the technology from someone, they put it in, but they can't seem to manage it. So they're looking for people to help them manage it, as well as tools and things like that. So I assume your company does some things in that area?
Oh yeah, so we combine our vast experience in the OT network with some key vendor partners. And then again, because we don't focus as much on the IT side and focus more on the OT side, that's where we see a gap. The people that are good at securing a headquarters don't understand that availability is the biggest issue. Also, that availability is what creates a lot of vulnerabilities, because access is the number one thing people worry about, not the vendor needs access, employee needs remote access. So we're seeing that's where we help out at.
Are you, because you're providing services, are you heading into things like monitoring for companies and managed services, or what initiatives might you be doing, or where are you focused on those areas?
Yes, as we continue to build out our offering, one of the things we try to focus on what customers' needs are. That's where we start at. And one of the things customers that we found that they need is that they operate a controls network. That's what they're good at. They don't have haven't made a large investment in IT security for the cyber network. So we've offered them basically a turnkey package. We start off with a master plan. We go through take them through the vulnerability assessment. And then what we think is a little bit different is we do the alerting and the monitoring, but we also start with a baseline of where they're at, and then we track the risk reduction. So you can have that as a record of what the investment has done for you. So that really helps when you want to justify your next spend, that you can show the board that, hey, we invested this money, here's the risk that we had before, and here's where we're at now. And then because of our experience on the OT side, we actually can go in there and upgrade the PLCs, make the changes that you need to, work with you when you can't make those changes, and ways to still reduce risk without making as many changes.
So you're helping companies justify their investments in cybersecurity.
Yes, as we it's just you mentioned earlier from Pittsburgh. So working growing up in the Rust Belt, you always had to justify the cost. So that's just part of our DNA, is helping people get return investment, justify cost.
Can you give some example or an example of the kinds of ROI that one might get from cybersecurity investments or services?
Sure. So a local water company here wanted to connect several of their water plants.
This is in Florida?
Yes. Just in case we didn't know that. So here in the Orlando area, they wanted to connect several of their plants together and operate from one control room. So they ran into, of course, challenges. How do you do that securely? Traditionally, the method would have been well over $1 million for hardware, software, training, and managing. What we were able to do for them was, with just a couple of days training, we provided them with a solution they can manage themselves, so they can manage it on the SCADA side, doesn't require the expensive IT services. And they tell us that we were much less than 50% on the CapEx, but the real savings that they receive every year is we're about 75% less on the OpEx side.
Oh,
because
very-
they can manage it themselves. Like I said, that pays off every year, not just a one-time savings.
Oh, that's very impressive. What kinds of things do you see companies doing wrong? What are they not doing right?
So one of the things that we see is there's a lot of knee-jerk reactions. So somebody says we need cyber, so somebody goes out and they spend money and they treat cyber as a checkbox as opposed to a process. So that would, again, just like when we work with somebody around analytics, we help you understand again what your baseline is, where your risks are at, and then how to reduce those risks and make sure that every dollar you spend in cyber actually reduces your risk. It really hurts our feelings when you go to a customer and they just spent a bunch of money and they didn't get anything for it. So,
what do you see as the top vulnerabilities in OT? Well, I like to call them industrial control systems. A lot of people just use OT, but in those kinds of systems.
yeah, so we two really jump out at me. One of them is the older operating systems. On the IT side, you can force people to upgrade regularly. You just can't do that on the control systems because there's a product that the vendor doesn't make anymore. It doesn't work on the latest operating system, and you just can't upgrade that. So that's always a vulnerability that, on the IT side, it'd be easy, just upgrade it, and you can't do that. The other one is firewalls and remote access. When the IT first sets those up, it's a great policy, it's a very secure. Then this vendor wants access, this employee wants access, and there's a lot of holes poked in them, and nobody goes back and closes those holes. So those are the two that really jump out at us is the older operating systems and the porous firewalls that over time happen.
Well, very, very interesting. Thank you, Kemmell.
All right.
We've been talking today with Kemmell Kassim with Gray Matter Systems. Thank you for watching.